If we stopped and listened to the amount of negative comments and internal criticism we are constantly subjecting ourselves to, we would be shocked at the amount of times we are actually putting ourselves down. We have this habit that has been going on for so long that we don't even realize it is occurring in the first place. So today we're going to go over 8 actionable steps to help us learn to silence our inner critic and to truly learn to accept and appreciate and celebrate the amazing people we actually are. Stick around. Welcome back. My name's Nena and I'm a life coach that specializes in personal development. Here at this channel we talk all about our emotional well-being, understanding our own psychology, and leading our best life possible. So if you aren't already a subscriber, please take a moment and become one. We definitely want you to stay connected. If we had a friend that was constantly pointing out every time they felt we were doing something wrong, or they were constantly saying that we weren't very attractive or talented or capable, we would probably figure out that this is a very toxic person and not really want to spend time with them anymore. Yet we talk to ourselves like that all the time. We do it constantly. We are hurtful to ourselves. We are brutal and even abusive. We are walking around with an inner critic that can not only make us question everything that we do and who we are, but can also ruin any moment of our day when it decides to show up. So we understand that our inner dialogue really can either empower us or it can sabotage us and really steal our emotional energy, which it does all the time. When we feel that something bad is going to happen or we are thinking bad thoughts, it's much more likely that we will have negative outcomes. And of course, if we are thinking that we are going to have a positive outcome, that is much more likely to be the case. I recently made a video about self-fulfilling prophecies, and if you have not watched that, I definitely recommend you doing so. I will link it down below because self-fulfilling prophecies truly run our lives all the time. It is a program that is running in the back of our mind all the time. So we really must be aware of when our inner critic is speaking to us because it leads to negative thought patterns. And when we have these negative thought patterns, it just becomes this vicious cycle of negativity in our life altogether. So let's go ahead and talk about 8 actionable strategies for silencing our inner critic and keeping it from truly running our lives. Now, the first thing that we have to do, of course, is to notice that we are having this inner critic in the first place. Maybe it's something you've never really thought about before. We have about 60 to 65,000 thoughts every single day, most of which are unfortunately negative. We have a very strong negativity bias, and some of these thoughts we just have over and over and over. So we have to have that awareness that these thoughts are occurring and really think about them. Analyze what you are telling yourself. Ask yourself, is this something I would say to a child? If the answer is no, that is a great indication that you are telling yourself some pretty toxic and most likely very untrue information. And then the second thing we have to do is to search for evidence. We need to prove to ourselves that these thoughts are not actually reality. They are just thoughts that we are having. But a lot of times we can't just accept that. We need to actually prove that to ourselves. So we need to really search our hearts and say, what are we thinking? And let's find some evidence to support it. You can actually write it down or use some sort of therapy. Now, my favorite type of therapy is called cognitive behavioral therapy, which is something that I made a video about, which I will also link down below. But basically what is happening in this type of therapy is we are taking a closer look at our automatic thoughts and our irrational beliefs, which is very strongly connected to our inner critic. So what is happening in this process is we look for evidence to support our statements, which are most likely, again, very, very untrue. And then if they are not true, we are going to refute them and replace them with much more positive and constructive thoughts. So that is what cognitive behavioral therapy is all about. But we need to actually prove to ourselves that the things that our inner critic is actually saying are not at all true. The third technique we can use is to redirect these thoughts or to stop the train of thoughts. We can go for a walk, we can read a book, we can watch a movie, we could call a friend, but we need to kind of stop the thought pattern and distract ourselves by doing something else, because if we fail to do that, it starts to become rumination. We will think about these thoughts over and over and over and over, and we will only further reinforce these thoughts. So we want to go ahead and stop the train and redirect our attention somewhere else. The fourth thing that we can do is to be productive. In a way, we are proving our inner critic wrong. We will do something that we can feel nothing but pride about if we actually accomplish it. Another thing that we can do is to kind of dig through the toxic language and also commit to never using that toxic language with ourselves anymore. But see if there was something productive that we were actually trying to tell ourselves, but we didn't know how to do so. So in fact, are we wanting to tell ourselves that maybe we need to be more organized, or maybe we need to have a healthier diet? Is there something possibly positive that could be gained by, again, rooting through all the negativity and seeing if there is something actually constructive at the core? If so, we can take small positive steps that are also very effective in silencing that inner critic. The fifth strategy is to ask yourself what you would tell a friend that was going through the exact same situation. So if you had a friend that had an intense inner critic, what would you say to that friend? And when you come up with that answer, it is likely that that is exactly what you need to be telling your own self. So often we have the answers. We know what we need to tell to ourselves. We know what we need to do, yet we fail to do it because we always question ourselves and our ability to accurately assess the situation, which we are more than competent to do so. So we want to, again, just ask ourselves, what would we tell another person? And tell that to ourselves. That is what we need to hear. And we need to be using this positive inner dialogue all the time, because again, we need to be the one to uplift ourselves and not the ones that are constantly being critical. The sixth thing that we have to do is to learn to find a balance between self-growth and self-improvement and self-acceptance. Yes, of course, there are many things about our lives that we wish we could improve upon, and we certainly can improve upon. Nobody is perfect. However, it is so important that we learn to accept and love ourselves at this very moment now. Not when we successfully complete goals or go through any type of hoop we are setting up for ourselves to jump through. We need to love and accept ourselves in this moment, and that is going to give us a much stronger sense of well-being, which will enable us to go forward and to reach goals and do all the wonderful things that we want to do in our life. So there has to be that balance there. So we can't have an inner critic that is constantly poking at us and telling us that we need to do this or that. Yes, maybe we need to do some of these things, but we also have to remember that our self-love should not be contingent on any of these factors. It just has to be. We are enough and worthy as we are right now all the time. It does not matter what actually occurs in our life. We are still enough. We are still worthy every single moment of our lives. The seventh thing we can do to silence that inner critic is to constantly remind ourselves how amazing we are. And yes, we are amazing. And maybe you're not in the habit of believing that to be true, but believe me, it really is true. And we can learn to prove this to ourselves by digging a little deeper, by thinking about all the qualities that we actually really do like about ourselves, the things that we would not change if we were given the option to. Think about all the things in your life that you're actually very, very grateful for. We need to be the ones that celebrate our own selves, give ourselves pep talks and affirmations, and to pump ourselves up. We need to be the ones that are constantly showering ourselves with self-love. So every single day, remind yourself how wonderful you are. Wake up in the morning and make that affirmation to yourself. Tell yourself all the positive things that you need to hear in the morning, and then again at night, and sure, during the day as much as needed as well. But definitely be a cheerleader for yourself and start to really raise your own morale whenever you can. And the eighth thing that we need to do has to do with upkeep. We need to really pay attention to our inner critic when it comes up and what things that we are really feeling insecure about. Because if we have this information, we can see clearly the areas of our life that still need healing. If we are constantly receiving inner criticism about one thing as opposed to another, that means there's probably a wound there. There is an insecurity, there is a limiting belief, there is pain connected to that. And that is something that we definitely need to address before we will truly be able to move forward in our life. So there you have it, 8 strategies that you can start to implement right away to help you silence that inner critic and to help relieve some of the suffering that has been brought to you by constantly having that voice of negativity with you all the time. So I truly hope this video was helpful to you today, and if it was, please like it and share it with someone else who may need to hear this very same message. Also, again, if you aren't a subscriber, please take a moment and become one. We definitely want you to stay connected. And I thank you so much for spending time with me today. Have an absolutely amazing day.